Hello, welcome back to another old school Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today we're looking at red-green land destruction. This deck was in the top 8 of the 2000 World Championships. I forgot who it was played by, but this deck focuses on mana acceleration with creatures, and it's basically a resource denial deck. You're taking it. You basically want to deplete your opponent of their lands, and then cast threats like Masticore and Blastoderm to finish the game. Pretty straightforward deck. Not too complicated. Pretty simple. But let's go ahead and look at each, card by card. So first off, we're going to start off with our mana acceleration creatures: 4 Birds of Paradise, 4 Llanowar Elves, 2 Priest of Titania. So basically, you want to cast these guys on turn 1 all the time. These guys will allow you to go turn 2 Stone Rain, which I know what you guys know what Stone Rain do. Priest of Titania basically adds more 1 mana to play for each elf in play. Add a green mana for each elf in play. I'm sorry. These are only elves in the deck, pretty much. Llanowar Elves and the 2 Priests of Titanias. So pretty much, yeah. It's allowing you to also go, turn 3 Avalanche Riders, turn 3 Masticore, turn 3 Blastoderm. Sometimes you could go turn 3 Plow Under, which is pretty nasty. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, these are the guys that excel you. The nice thing about Birds of Paradise, it gives you both green and red mana, which is pretty nice. So moving on here, Avalanche Riders, one of the first invitational cards ever in Magic. Pretty much it's a 4 mana 2/2 with haste. When it comes into play, you get to destroy a land, any land. So you get to destroy basic land, non-basic land, and then it has an echo cost of it has an echo cost which you have to pay at the beginning of the next upkeep, or you have to sacrifice it. So this is land destruction spell, 12, 4 through 12 pretty much. Moving on, Masticore. You guys already know how good Masticore is. We have another in the sideboard, and I actually think that 3 in the main deck could be viable. Actually, it seems like you want to draw it more than just having 2 in the deck. But Masticore was pretty much literally in every single deck around this time, so it is what it is. But still a good creature in the deck to have. Moving on, we got Blastoderm, 2 colorless, 2 greens, a 5/5, which is already really good. It's got 3 fading counters. Comes into play with 3 fading counters. Beginning your upkeep, remove a fade counter from it if you can't sacrifice it. So basically, this guy is going to come down, and he can't be the target of spells or abilities. This guy is a nightmare for a lot of decks. If you could just usually just drop this early, it just causes a lot of headaches for your opponent. They have to because the fact that 5 damage is so much, they usually have to chump block a lot. And the fact that he has fading 3 means that he's going to stick around for 4 turns, which is a lot. Moving on, Saproling Burst, 5 mana enchantment with 7 fading counters. This card has a lot of text, so bear with me here. So you get to remove it. So it says remove a fade counter from Saproling Burst. You put a green sapling creature token in play, and has the creature's power and toughness equal to the number of fade counters in Saproling Burst. And then when Saproling Burst leaves play, you destroy all tokens put into play with Saproling Burst, and they can't be regenerated. So this is actually a good way to, once you're ahead on board, you could remove a couple of fade counters and get some large Sapling creatures to finish the game. You could actually power this out usually on turn 3 or turn 4, with your bird, with your elves and your birds. So it's also a nice way to, keep making trump blockers if you need it. So this card, plays a pretty diverse role in the deck. So moving on here, let's go to our direct damage and our land destruction spell. So 4 Arc Lightnings. This recently just got printed of Khans of Tarkir. 3 mana sorcery. Deals 3 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. This is usually killing like your metal worker and dealing a point of damage to them as well. It could kill a couple of mana guys like Bird, you know, in the mirror match is really good. It's okay, not bad. Moving on, Stone Rain. Nothing more to say on it. I mean, 3 mana, destroy land. One of the, you know, core spells in the deck. Slow your opponent down. Here's our you know, bread and butter of the deck. Plow Under. 3 colorless, 2 green, sorcery. Put 2 target lands on top of their owner's library. Once you cast this, they usually concede most of the time if you are ahead on board. Because basically it's like, you know, you're just time walking them twice, and it also works extremely well with lands that come into play tapped because you slow them down even further. You know, pretty much, you know, it's pretty backbreaking spell in the deck. And a 1 of Creepy Mold. Very, very versatile for 2 colors, 2 green, sorcery. You can destroy target artifact, land, or enchantment. So, pretty nice to have. 1 Phyrexian Processor. Just a 1 of. You don't want multiples because your objective is to, you know, destroy lands, but it's a nice backup, you know, win condition when you don't have like your Blastoderms and your Masticores. Comes into play, you pay any amount of life, and then you get to pay 4 mana, tap it. You get to make a minion token into play. It's a black creature, power stuff equal to the amount of life paid at the time Phyrexian Processor comes into play. So the amount of life you pay will just depend on what situation you're in. So pretty straightforward there. Let's move on to our land base here. You know, it's only a 2 color deck, so Carpulsing Force works very well. Gives you green and red mana, but it's a pain land, so you do take a damage if you add either green or red. Rashad Import was pretty much a staple in back in these times. I mean, Rashad Import and Masticore was like literally like in pretty much in every single deck. The fact that Rashad Import is a land that gets under counter spells, slows control decks down. It gives you something to do when you're mana flooded. You could use it on your opponent's upkeep. You could you know, hold it back. Use it on the end of your opponent's turn. It's just so awesome, man. It just does so much. I believe this card now is like somewhere like $70 something, $80, somewhere around there. It's just ridiculous. I remember back then this card was only like 10 or 15 bucks. It's just crazy. But rounding out, we got Dust Bowl here, another nice utility land. It taps for a colorless, and you could also pay 3 colorless. Tap it, sack a land, destroy target non-basic land. So this card just adds insult to injury when your opponent is mana crippled. Once you get enough lands going, and they'll pretty much never have non-basic lands ever. And then rounding out the mana base, we got a good amount of forests and 4 mountains. So that's pretty much the whole entire deck in a nutshell. Not too complicated, very straightforward deck. Let's take a look at the sideboard here. For our sideboard, we're just going to start off here with 3 Uktabi Orangutans. Basically comes in against the Tinker decks. 3 mana, 2/2. Beats down pretty good. Flame Shot. It's also, you know, basically Arc Lightning 5 through 6. But it only targets creatures. And it also has an alternate casting cost where you could discard a mountain. Pretty weird that the deck only has 4 mountains, but it's also good against... I remember it was good against the Angry Hermit decks, because it gets to kill the sapling, the squirrel tokens. It kills the the Angry Hermit himself. I believe that was his name. So good at killing, you know, birds of paradise and elves on turn 1. So moving on here, 4 boils. I mean, the deck has so much land destruction already, but this is basically just comes in against the mono blue, basically the mono blue control decks. Back then, it was basically a mono blue deck with a ton of counter spells, a ton of card draw. Had like Thieving Magpies, Masticores. Thieving Magpie would be there to allow you to draw more cards. So this is pretty much just like a one-sided Armageddon against them, because they play a bunch of islands and they play very few non-basic lands. So this is just, and it's also instant, which is nice because you could cast it on your opponent's turn, let them counter it, and then if you have another one in hand, you just main phase it and you just pretty much win the game because you pretty much just one-side Armageddon them. Moving on, Rack and Ruin, 2 colorless mana and a red, instant, destroy 2 target artifacts. Pretty much the Tinker decks. Nothing more than that. Creeping Mold. We got one in the main board, but you know, it's always good to have another one in the sideboard. You want to destroy pretty much annoying enchantments. Splinter. There was a cycle of these for each color, I believe, in the Urza block. So Splinter is 2 colors, 2 green. You remove target artifact from the game, and basically you just get to extirpate all the copies. So you get to look through their graveyard, hand, library for all copies of the card, remove them from the game. This was pretty much your way to deal with Masticore, or your way to, after they play Friction Processor and they pay like a certain amount of life or whatever, you play this and exile all copies. So pretty good against those cards. And then rounding off the deck, we got one more Processor, one more Masticore against, you know, good against decks that Masticore and Processor are already good against. So that is pretty much the deck. This deck will be included in my Versus series that I got coming up real soon. So pretty straightforward deck. Let me know what you guys think of this deck. And once again, thanks